Exanima is pain as a video game. So take a pretty cool physics engine, take a medieval fantasy setting, now make it really, really hard. It might make you think of Dark Souls, but it's pretty different. Exanima is an early access dungeon crawler game built upon a fairly realistic physics engine. It caught my eye at first when I saw some gameplay and noticed how weighty it looked. You have to time your attacks and calculate the distance between you and your enemy, and the weight and speed of your weapon. All while exploring a dark and spooky dungeon and advancing floors. But geez, this game is unfriendly. There is no tutorial to teach you how to play, you just have to figure it out. And at this point, I feel like I could figure out any game fairly quickly, but not Exanima. With keyboard controlling movement, and the mouse controlling where your character looks, it sounds fairly normal, but this game is anything but second nature. You have to be constantly rotating your camera with the middle mouse button, and controlling your character with WASD. All while paying attention to where your character is looking so that you know where you're going to go. It feels unintuitive to me because it's so difficult, but I keep finding myself wanting to go back. It has the just one more run addictiveness, and I think it mainly comes from wanting to master the controls. If you go to the game's subreddit, you'll find videos of people who have mastered the controls, and they make the combat look beautiful. The learning curve for the game is rough, but I really want to climb it. I first went into the game thinking, oh, it's only $15, why not? If I don't like it, I'll just refund it. But then I proceeded to blow through the 2-hour refund time you have on Steam without even realizing it. Here's what I think about Exanima. The graphics are pretty decent, and the lighting in the dungeon looks good, but combat is extremely infuriating at first. It's obvious that it takes practice and finesse. Once you get it, I'm sure it's really fun, but I have yet to even make it past the first floor. I don't even feel like I'm allowed to be talking about this game, to be honest. I'd consider myself a light fan of the Souls games. Never have I fully beat one to the final boss, but I've played them all, and to decent points in each one. I would consider Exanima harder than the Dark Souls games. That might be a controversial statement, but let me explain myself. Maybe it's not that Exanima is harder per se, it's just more punishing. In a Souls game, you make progress through checkpoints, spend your souls to increase your stats and such, and get better weapons and armor as you go. Exanima starts you off in a room with a stick and a torch and lets you go. You do find new weapons and armor, but that's if you make it that far. The likelihood that I die on floor 1 is currently 100%, and you always start back in the same room with a torch and a stick. Welcome to your new life. Torch and stick, man. Grab a torch and stick, encounter the first enemy, die, grab torch and stick again. Maybe this time you kill the first enemy, congrats. You will die to the second enemy and go back to torch and stick. It's that little bit of progress, though, that makes you come back. That gameplay loop probably sounds terrible to some of you, but Exanima does do a good job at keeping you because you can tell when you're getting better. Your punches and attacks start hitting more, you start gaining more ground in the dungeon, you find a piece of armor and then find a real sword. It's when things like that start happening that the game becomes more and more satisfying to play. Look at this clip from the game's Reddit. This is one of the first things I saw that got me interested in the game, and I want to get to that skill level. I'm a huge fan of games with good physics. The two VR games Boneworks and Blade and Sorcery being in my top 10 games of all time, just for their physics alone. Exanima doesn't quite have anything to the level of those games, but it does do a pretty good job in its own right. Something I think Exanima could benefit from would be a 1v1 online duel mode or something like that, maybe like invading from Dark Souls. There's no better way to test your skills than to get whooped by somebody who has 3 times your playtime in games like these. The game is in early access, so it's still getting constant updates and content drops, so even if it looks a little interesting to you, I recommend you start following it. Interestingly enough, Exanima is actually a prelude to a different game started on Kickstarter a couple years ago under the name Sui Generis. Sui Generis is supposed to be an open-world RPG game set in the same engine as Exanima, and it'll take place about 20 years after Exanima is set, so I look forward to seeing how that game ends up in the future. Exanima is currently in its beta stage, and Sui Generis is still in pre-alpha, so it's got a bit of time ahead of it. If you're looking for a fun but difficult single-player game to get into, I suggest keeping your eye on Exanima. Anyway, thank you for checking out my video. If you're interested in learning more about Exanima or Sui Generis, I'll drop the links to the devs' websites in the description and everything. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.